Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this program organized by Chennai International Center. It's the last program for the year, and thank you all for joining in today. Let me invite Venugopal Kasturi, trustee of Chennai International Center, also the program chair, to welcome the speakers and start the session, please. Venu.
Yeah. Thank you, Vanita. Good afternoon, all, and welcome to another CIC session. It's our 99th program since we started about 4 years ago. And as Vanita said, this is the last for the year 2020. As humans, 2020 vision is something we all aspire to have, for you can see everything without the aid of glasses. Dr. Arvind Srinivasan, head of the world-famous Arvind Eye Care Hospitals, is here with us. I hope he'll agree with me. But after the travails of the past 12 months, 2020 will mean the year we would like to forget. So what we've tried to do today is to bring together representatives of sectors that have been deeply impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The panelists will speak about the adjustments they've all had to make to their lives, their professions, and their businesses. Some changes made to conform to COVID regulations may be temporary, but some may actually be more enduring than first thought. For instance, some of us now work from home and may not want to get back to office even after the pandemic is over. The panel will then cast their vision to 2021 and tell us how they see it unfold. Let me introduce the speakers on the panel. Among the sectors most affected has been the hospitality sector. Mr. Ravi Appasamy, MD of Appasamy Real Estates, who also manages residency hotels here in Chennai, is here to speak about the hospitality industry, on what the sector has gone through, and expresses hope for 2021. Education has gone completely online. There's a lot of uncertainty around what schools and colleges are going to do in the upcoming year. Vaidya Subramaniam, Vice Chancellor of Shastra University, is here to share key insights from the education sector. Legal hearings are now virtual. What has been the experience of lawyers and litigants in this new environment? We welcome Sriram Panchu, senior lawyer, to share his thoughts about the sector. It's December, and yet the vibrancy of the Margari music and dance season is missing. The arts and culture stream that has contributed greatly to the richness of Chennai has gone online. To speak about the hope for 2021 for the arts, we have the Director of Kalakshetra, Srimati Revati Ramachandran. And to speak about the most critical stream in these COVID times, the healthcare sector, we have Dr. Arvind Srinivasan, as I said, with us. Hopefully, with a 2021 vision that is better than 2020. And we have Rashida Bhagat, editor of Rotary News and one of the city's finest journalists, to moderate the session. Here's Rashida.
So it's over to me now?
Yep.
Good evening, everybody. As Venu said, I don't think there's anybody who's attending this conference who will be sorry to see this year go. As Time magazine put it very aptly, I hope you can see this 2020, the worst year ever. So it was such a bad year and affected so many of us in so many different ways. There's several images, but I think the one which will be etched deeply into our hearts, our minds, our consciousness will be the sight of thousands and thousands of migrant laborers walking home, and not 10, 50, 100 kilometers, but 1,000, 2,000 kilometers. But then we also saw humanity at its best, generosity, compassion, people braving the infection, braving the virus, coming out to feed these people. So there was this uh, terrible pessimism. We were all, we kind of, were pushed into our homes. And as we, mankind, the most selfish creatures on earth, retracted into our homes, the environment, the flowers started blooming. Our carbon footprint reduced, the flowers started blooming, the fauna, the flora, everything, So it has been such a mixed bag, but mostly bad. So as I promised, I'm going to keep my words to the minimum. Let's start with Sriram. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you, Sriram, for the last couple of very fine articles you penned in the Hindu on the edit page. Particularly, I enjoyed the one titled, Tongue Firmly in Cheek, Protect Our Republic, My Lords, on the bail given with lightning speed to Arnav Goswami. Sriram, tell us about how this pandemic has affected the legal and the justice systems in our country. Were there any ray of hope?
Thank you, Rashida, and thank you, CIC, Venu, and Vanita. I think as a profession, we were devastated. When COVID hit and we were confined to our homes, we were completely at sea. The law by nature, and courts by nature are not a quick response institution. We are fairly ponderous in our gait, but we were completely side-strapped. So for weeks we were marooned at home, and the justice system came to a crumbling halt. We revived slowly with the most urgent of things, which are bail applications. So we started to find some way of, at least addressing those even I think by actually having real-time urgent hearings. But we made recovery fairly soon. In about 2-3 months, I'd say we started to make recovery when we got on to online platforms. Yes. It took some time for the court to assess, are we going to get back to real-time functioning, or should we go in for a big wave, online functioning? It took some time for that kind of decision to be made. But once they made the decision that no, online, let's go heavily into online, then they invested a lot of resources into that. And it has been quite good, I must say. Judges have equipped themselves well. Case files are placed before them. Lawyers have very quickly learned to adapt, to an online way of functioning. So we are back to full strength in our courts. All courts are functioning online. Cases are getting heard with a good degree of efficiency. Youngsters particularly are taking very well to this. Sometime back, the Chief Justice wanted to reopen the courts, and he found that a great majority of lawyers said, no, we want to continue online. Partly because of fear of COVID, but partly also because I think young lawyers are very comfortable with online functioning. They have they give them more independence. And for some of them who may be a bit shy of speaking up in court to an audience of, many people, it's far more comfortable doing it, online. The other point I want to make is the COVID has actually done very well for our world of mediation. Mediation is a system where the mediator talks to parties in a closed setting. And mediation has taken off very well because of COVID. It has just made our functioning as mediators so much easier. I mean, earlier I would have to travel to, across the country and abroad to conduct a mediation and be strapped by time because we had to finish in 1 day or 2 days. Now we simply don't have that at all. I can assemble parties from around the globe within a matter of hours. We can meet today, tomorrow, the day after. We can get as flexible as we want. And what used to take me months now takes me weeks and days. So for the world of mediation, COVID has, I must say, has been propitious actually. It's been very good. And it's propelled mediation to a faster center stage than it otherwise may have been. That's a little roundup of how COVID-19 has affected my two professions of the law in its pristine form and mediation.
Thank you, Shreya. Let's move to Revati now. Revati, how has the world of music and dance, art and culture, crafts, how has this pandemic affected that? You told us, in the pre-opening session that Kalakshetra will at least allow some people. But imagine the Chennai music festivals, December, moving online. Will not be something missing from that, when you have these huge concerts, there's so much, the connect between the Rasika and the maestro is so important. I'm not much of a connoisseur of this Madras scene, but my weakness is the ghazal. And having attended the programs of Mehdi Hassan and Ghulam Ali and Jagjit Singh, I have seen how a concert reaches sublime heights when there's a connect between the audience. And sometimes even these great maestros are there, but the audience is disconnected, it just flops. How will that work? And tell us about how Kalakshetra has dealt with this pandemic.
Yes. Namaskaram, and I'm very happy to be part of this panel discussion regarding the effect of COVID-19 on different fields. And I thank the CIC for having given us this opportunity, given Kalakshetra an opportunity to express what, on behalf of artists and the art world, probably what has been the scene. So we've always seen that in a big windstorm, many trees get uprooted. But what we see is there are small reeds which are on the river banks. Those which bend, they never get uprooted. So the most important point that all of us have to look at this is the adaptability that each one of us have to take into our system. Because this, as Mr. Sri Panchal just said, it is very important like how we adapt to situations. The necessity is to bend in response to a storm, to a howling wind of unpleasant situations, and come back without breaking down. Because the situation is not going to remain the same, and we are going to go back to normalcy. Might be there have been such pandemics which have affected the world earlier, especially I think the Spanish flu and other things we have been a witness to, which has not been which we have not even thought of till this pandemic came here now today. So, and I think God has blessed all of us human beings with the capacity to cope. That is one thing which God has given us, with the cope with different challenges appropriately. And so it is very necessary, and this COVID has taught us to be more responsible, and people have become more responsible. I see around us, I see everyone is responsible. The entire social outlook has changed. And of course, we have to steer through an unknown future now. But I think all of us are preparing rightly for it. In spite of all what is happening now, it is very important for the show to go on, especially in the field of entertainment. And thanks to the internet and the facilities technology, we've been able to put things together and at least keep up the spirit of the art forms alive. So I would say that it's very important to have the spirit going. It is, of course, not like how when you see a person, because art forms are all about communication, and where there is a sahridaya who partakes in the enjoyment, and it has to be viewed physically, especially dance. Even music can be heard, and it is only one part of your sense organ which gets satiated, and you can just close your eyes and hear music. But dance and visual art forms, they suffer a lot, because this needs a person to be in the place, in the space where the performance is happening, so that there is a flow of thoughts and ideas, and so that you can partake in the beauty of what is happening and become a sahridaya. So that is missing. It is a negative point. That is the reason, we are also an educational institution, Kalakshetra Foundation. We impart skill education and in terms of dance, and we have about 250 students who are into music, dance, and visual arts learning platforms. And the year abruptly ended in March, and we had to face the examinations which were there, and skill examination practicals. Luckily, we had finished our course, our practical exams on the day of the lockdown. So we had to only take the written examination. So we had to send back all the students from the hostel at that point. It is not very simple to face such a situation in art institutions, and so we did take a move of going on to the online platforms like how all the other institutions have done. But we found a great difficulty in imparting education, especially even music and dance was possible to a certain extent, though it is not like having live classes. But as far as imparting the training in musical instruments, unless, especially for beginners, unless it is physically you're in contact with the person, it is not possible to do. Like you have to see how the hands have to be placed in a mridangam or a veena, how to hold the line. So a violin, you need them to have physical. So online classes are becoming a bit difficult for these musical instrument training. But and the programs, the seasons. So Kalakshetra Foundation, being an autonomous body under the Ministry of Culture, Government of India, we have tried our best to help artists to go through this pandemic. We have been seeing level best not to take anyone out of job or just give them all whatever is due. The government has been giving us all the necessary aid to carry on these type of work, and we've also been trying to keep up the programs going with the online interviews with seniors, so that it has also brought a time of introspection for most of the artists, so that they have never had the time to really sit back and think what they have been doing, and now they have had this time. The pandemic, sometimes it's a blessing for the artists because they've sat back and thought what they have been doing. They have been to go through what they have not kept aside for a different time. They've been able to do that. And so, like, probably when the vaccine is out and everything is back, we'll have a new spurt of ideas and new choreographies which are going to come on live, surely. So what Kalakshetra did was we did a series of programs. We gave some online presentations, and I also brought the students who are in the performance wing. All of them were brought back to the college. They were quarantined, and we started our rehearsals from September. And now we are having a show which is starting which started on the 21st of this month. The governor inaugurated it, and so we are having a session where I thought it was important for at least 80 people or a few people to be in the audience, because a performer needs a live audience. Like, it's very, very different to dance to a screen, to dance to a camera. So it was very important to have the live presence of audience. So we have sold tickets, and it's important also to give the livelihood for the artists. And we have brought together many people. We had a Terukuthu presentation yesterday because we wanted to give a livelihood. The folk art forms have suffered the most during the pandemic. They have not had places to go. Like they've not been able to perform anywhere because their livelihood comes out of performing in festivals, and all festivals have been banned. And so in fact the Katekuthu Sangam had to close down because of this. So I thought we should revive such places. So we brought the Katekuthu Sangam to perform. They were performing after 9 months for the first time, and then we had a Kathakali performance, and today we are having a Jugalbandi by Devashish and Mr. Kumaresh, which is happening. So we're getting together people, and we're trying to keep up the spirit of the art. I think that is what is most important as art. I think as patrons of art, or a person where art is considered most important, we're trying to keep up the spirit of the art going. And so, like, in fact, as I said, it is very difficult to go on online teaching. It is very difficult to replace the rote system, especially in art forms. So we are looking forward, and we look to a 2021 for the vaccine to come, so that everything comes back to normalcy. But we have adapted, and we will live on. That is what we all symbolize. Thank you.
Thank you, Revati. And while these people have suffered, all of us have become addicts of Netflix and Amazon Prime, and got addicted to movies. Thank you. I'll move on to Dr. Arvind now. Dr. Arvind, the spotlight more than any other industry was on the healthcare. industry and our system. This unprecedented crisis, no hospital rooms to be had, in the initial days. And after Diwali, even in Ahmedabad and Delhi, no private hospitals had rooms. So many doctors and other healthcare professionals were lost. As as a country, our healthcare system, what did we do right and what did we do wrong in dealing with this pandemic? Your experience.
So thank you, Rashida, and thank you, CIC, for this opportunity. As you rightly pointed out, healthcare came to the forefront because of this pandemic that has come. I would divide it into three phases. March, April, kind of we did not even know what hit us. The hospitals and everybody were scrambling around to understand what it was. So in our case, as you know, we are an eye hospital. We are not directly in the firing line. We are we are an ancillary support, unlike a pulmonologist or anesthesiologist, etc. So we had a meeting with an eye hospital, a team of doctors from China, including a hospital in Wuhan, to understand how they dealt with it. And looking back at that meeting, it was complete paranoia. They did not know. They were talking about the doctor's shoes carrying virus. You have to be careful. You'll have to do everything. Like all, I'm sure most of you have, most of us have done that. So two things struck us as an organization. In month of March, our biggest concern was how do we protect our staff and how do we protect our patients. Patients did not come in the month of March and April. Being an eye hospital, they did not come up. But those were challenging times because we are a fairly large organization. We have quite a number of staff members. There was so much panic in April. I distinctly remember one of our staff who was probably 40 and his father who was about 70. Both of them got COVID. There was such an amount of fear in them. He was crying in the phone. He was saying, "Sir, I went to 3 hospitals. I was not able to get beds. Please help us. What needs to be done?" Government tried to do its best with its own facilities. So that was the level of paranoia. I think the next phase, when we moved kind of June, July, August, was much more rational in our approach. We understood the disease a lot better, though everybody had their own wisdom as far as what drug would work well. But we understood that the mortality is not to the level that one saw in Spain or one saw in China. So I think that gave sanity prevailed then. People came out. In a hospital setting, we faced a big challenge. We realized, we have a lot of young doctors, but the problem was, they said, my father and grandmother are there. I can't come to the hospital and go back. So, we have to run our operations. Patients would need care. That was another challenge that we felt in the month of, I would say, April, May, June. Accidents happen. People can fall down, people can injure their eyes, people have a surgery which requires another look at it or a resurgery. So all that became a big challenge for us because anesthesia became a bottleneck. Because they said anesthesia is the biggest challenge because you are putting a lot of viruses out when you are doing some of those procedures. So that kind of was a challenge. And the third phase, I would look at it, is where we are now. I think October, November, during Diwali, even Tinagar, the streets, people are kind of tired of COVID. People are getting away from COVID and then trying to live there. None of us are as paranoid as before. If somebody is not wearing a mask, we just have a smile or a smirk and move on. But not in March or April or June. We were like, this is not the right thing to do. So a lot of, even in healthcare, what happened was the communication became very, very interesting because the ideas came from all over the world. People were talking, crisscrossing. You would have read, right? Journals published articles left, right, and center, not even peer reviewed. They said there were articles before peer review, 100,000 articles on everything possible. And some of it was also dubious articles that you would have seen because of the pharmaceutical industry's interests. And, interestingly, on a lighter note, what we realized was we have a lot of young women working for us, nurses. Suddenly, we saw a spurt of marriages happening. Then we asked some of the parents, why this rush to marriage? He said it's very affordable to do marriages during COVID times. We don't have to call a lot of people. We don't have to feed them. We don't have to hire a marriage hall. So that, on a lighter note, a lot of our young nurses were able to get married, and the parents saved a fortune in that. So finally, I know one message I would like to share is I think India has handled it very well. Look at, we are a 1.3 billion population. It is not easy. We all have problems with everything that is around us, genuinely so. But considering all the limitations, I think the government acted with all its wisdom, with all its might. I can definitely say no private organization could have matched the machinery that the government had, because they were able to bring everything together. The environmental department, the administrative departments. Healthcare is one element, right? You have to feed these people in the hospital. You have to transport the doctors to the hospital. You have to, if you have to barricade a street, the doctor and nurses are not going to barricade a street. So I think there was a coordinated effort by the government. Actually, honestly, in the month of March, all of us would have thought India is going to go belly up. If it is going to be really the way it is going in Spain, such amount of panic, 4-5% mortality with that kind of a spread. But I think India has handled it very well. I think from a healthcare perspective, though we have lost a lot of good people to this pandemic, but I think we have shown character as a country and as a fraternity to bring the best to the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Arvind. Especially the Chennai Corporation, the way the personnel reached out, followed up on cases and all that. I think some sectors of the government really did well. I agree with you there. And they are unsung heroes, most of them. Coming to Mr. Vaidya. Mr. Vaidya, the education stream has really been, kind of turned topsy-turvy because classrooms, so many students, and has it changed forever the way, students are going to learn? Give us your insight into what this pandemic has meant for the education system and how it will span out in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Rashida. Thanks, Venu, Vanita, the entire CIC family, audience, and my fellow panelists. As you rightly put, one major impact that will remain permanent in the education ecosystem is the significant and dominant presence, which I think will only increase as we move forward on this online education. Having said that, the first half of the entire experience after we got hit by this pandemic was kind of an examination for the institutions themselves. We have heard of higher education institutions conducting examinations for students, but we just had to flip the coin the other side to see that higher education institutions and schools are subjecting themselves for an examination that they had to take, in the sense that this came as an unannounced exam for us. We just got hit, and the students had to leave the hostel, and universities and institutions like our type, where we are pretty much residential, we had to shut down the hostels and send students safely back to their places of stay. And in this unannounced examination that we had to take, we had no clue what the syllabus for the examination is. So it was an undefined syllabus also. So because everything was new, and everybody shared a lot of information, as Dr. Arvind was mentioning. So every individual ran a WhatsApp university parallelly. So we had to collate a lot of information, and for this we had no teacher also. So we couldn't really rely on somebody who can give us specific directions. So everybody had to just assume a lot of things, but it was a measured assumption backed with some logic and reasoning. And there was no specific question paper that we had on hand, because every time the question paper itself changed. So every week, I should say, we had new protocols, new operating procedures, new rules. So there was no definitive answer to a question paper that just expired on a weekly basis. So if you just combine all of this, and if I just view this as an experience that education institutions themselves had to undergo as an exam taking experience, I must say that the first half we managed to pass. So we just, put things together. We adapted quickly and then ensured that the academic year came to a successful close. But especially for Indians, mere pass is not enough. We always aim for centum, so mere pass is not enough. So the second half has been a lot of learning for us. So there was time for us to just look back and correct some of the mistakes that many institutions would have done. So we also did a lot of mistakes in terms of adjusting to the accelerated rate at which we were hit, and then slowly started putting in place a kind of a solution that was providing a seamless transition from the regular brick and mortar teaching learning to bits and bytes teaching learning ecosystem. So as on date, with education institutions not fully opened, we must say that the committee of all the education institutions have gotten together and shared best practices and put in place to ensure that though the gates of the institution are closed, the learning gates are always open, the learning continuum has been maintained. And this apart, it's also challenging for education institutions, especially, the teachers and students are the key. So we had to run the social obligation that we had on hand. We made sure that all the staff were not denied their salary every day. Promptly every month they got their salaries that were due for them. And we ensured that we had enough support mechanisms that could support the needy. And our charitable and social endeavor also continued. Our hostels were used by the administration for various COVID relief measures, and independently we also did it. So the short of the entire experience has been so far that yes, we took an unscheduled examination. We passed it reasonably well as education institutions, and preparing ourselves to what I would see as a progressive future, which is going to be positively disrupted by a digital ecosystem. How, maybe for the second part, as we see how 2021 is going to unfold, I will reserve that for that part. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, while online, technology and online classes and have helped some sectors, technology. But when it comes to Mr. Ravi's industry and the hospitality sector, how do you get online travel? You can't have virtual hotel stays. So the hospitality industry has been totally devastated. Tell us a little bit about that. And since you're also in real estate, maybe you can share your perspective on how this pandemic.
Thank you, Rashida. Thank you, CIC. It's been a tough time since April. It's all of a sudden we got a closure. It was difficult to handle at the property level, and also the staff who are working, because all of them have to come from different locations. When everything was barred, we have to organize special passes for people to travel and for essential services. It all started with the support for the doctors. That is how our operation surfaced again. We were almost housing close to 200 doctors in both properties in Chennai. So they were staying with us, and it became a different experience of handling them in the hotel. In fact, we have created a new position of hygiene butler, because they need to handle these doctors who are going to the hospital and coming, staying with us. Their laundry have to be handled. So these are all the challenges. And all the services were only through room service. Housekeeping was suspended. They need to do their own setting up the rooms. We provide them the linen for that. So we virtually have to stop our services at the entrance of the room. From there they handle. So it became a new routine for them, and they have also put their effort to training our people in terms of handling, picking up their laundry, and that is being given back to them. because they are coming from a hospital where they are handling the COVID patients and all those related things. So this is a bit of challenge, and that is the first beginning when we restarted the operation very shortly from the closure. And it all then on the project side, what we have done, we have luckily in a couple of properties, we were doing some upgradation of the hotel that we were able to do during this pandemic time. The challenge there was again keeping the workers for that. That was the next challenge. So still we managed nearby places for them to stay because they can only walk and come. They cannot, road transport were not permitted. So we also doesn't want them to go elsewhere. So handling their stay and their food have been our part of the routine that we have taken it up to do that. Then even with the doctors, we were not doing higher percentage of occupancy, but the hotel have to be maintained, whether we use or not, because air conditioner has to run, fresh air has to run. This is a static thing that we need to do, otherwise the property will get spoiled. It is not the question of 1 or 2 days, it's by now, if you look back, it is almost 9 months now. So this is a big challenge. At least first 5-6 months has been very tough, and both handling the property, handling the staff, handling the guest, which includes doctors. The other set of people whom we were handling, people who were coming on Vande Bharat flights. Yeah. So the mandatory time was 1 week or 15 days, depending on the state or the country from where they are coming in. So the moment they arrived, they were taken a COVID test. It was repeated after a week. Until then, they used to stay in the hotel. Similarly, they also cannot come out of the room. It went to so much of detailing that there is a police who are posted in the lobby of the hotel by the government. They did not want these people to go out or flee away from the hotel. So this has become a lot of stress for the people who stayed, which also included few pregnant women also. This has been very tough for them, but that is the rule of the day at that time. At least what we have done, we have permitted them to at least walk in the corridor. At least they have some kind of change. It becomes very claustrophobic to be in the room for 15 days. That will be I think that's the worst one could go through. That is the next phase that was happening on Vande Bharat, which was later reduced to 1 week. Then they have also allowed home quarantine later to that. So the first phase of people who are coming on Vande Bharat had a lot of challenge when they stayed in the hotel. From outside, it could be easy that people are staying in a star hotel, but it wasn't. It was a tough time for them. Then, along with that, we were also had the opportunity of handling we were sending food packets for all the support staff who are working for Rayapeta Hospital, Child Trust, Omandura. But this we did as from our CSR initiative. So that we did for almost 5 months for all these 3 hospitals. So almost about 300 people per day will be the support that we were doing. So altogether, this industry not being there, were giving a lot of tough time for all the stakeholders or all the people who have been continuous usage of this. It is also people who are staying alone in the city, who are depending only on the food from the hotels or they Swiggy it, those kind of people also. They had a very tough time. One, they had a problem in getting the permission. And number 2, even if it came, everybody's paranoid whether it is the right way to take it and eat. That used to be the big concern at that point of time. From a hotel point of also, we have put little more stringent condition, more to make people comfortable, that we are taking the utmost care for the people who are coming in. Otherwise, everybody is worried about whether we are doing the right thing, are we handling right, are we giving enough importance. So these are all the challenges that we had. Then started the marriages getting into the hotel with 50-100 people. That has started somewhere in August, September. From those, small weddings were taking place. that was fairly an easy job for us than all this, because we are all used to handling a bigger number. So this is not a big number. We could comfortably do with social distancing and all those required protocols. So that was fairly easier compared to what we went through the earlier 5 months. And for the staff, we were also, we are not able to give them the full comfort of the salary, but we were giving them moderate salary. We have moderated the salary. But people who have been working, they have been paid full. People who have been not working, they have been getting moderated salary. And we have been focusing on training and handling in this kind of situation in the hotel, which is going to be there for some more time. Even if vaccine is going to come, which hopefully as soon as possible, still the fear is going to be there for some more time. It's not going to go just like that. So that is going to be a challenge, and the comfort need to be given for the people who are going to henceforth getting into the hotel for various usage. In terms of tourism point of view, where people are tourism related, like today, 2 countries in the world have opened up. One is Dubai and the next is Maldives. There, reasonably, it is started doing well. The business is bouncing back, at least for the last 2 months. In fact, our hotel in Maldives also, we have started doing well. It is almost there to pre-COVID level. But in domestic tour, it has not yet picked up here. It has dropped down to as low as 15-20%. And we get an increment of 10% per month, which means it's going to take a little longer time than what it is. Maybe end of 2021 should be the time where if vaccination becomes successful, that should be the time at which the business could stabilize. In terms of real estate,
let's come to that in the second round, because we have to keep a strict eye on the clock.
Fine.
Let's go to the second round now. I'll come to Sriram. And gentlemen, please, watch the clock, because let's have some questions. Otherwise, it'll become it'll become monologue. Sriram, you were very disciplined in the first round, so you can take 1 extra minute. Now, moving forward in 2021, do you think that, and later, do you think virtual courts have come to stay? And do you think that this pandemic has given opportunity to the not so well off to be able to afford, going to courts, the people living in far-flung areas through virtual courts? And will lawyers like you become less expensive because, the travel cost and all that will come down?
I'm not rising to the debate about the assumption about my fees, because I haven't yet sent you a bill, which I soon will.
Okay.
But in terms of the law, I think online is here to stay. I think it will make us more efficient. It will enable better use of our resources. If we are savvy enough, we will in fact make use of the fact that people can conduct hearings from homes, and therefore we will bring retired judges who retired at the age of 62 and were still in very good shape. We'll bring them back into functioning, and I think that will help to handle the backlog of cases. I think mediation will grow exponentially, and that will again help to deal with a large number of cases. Thirdly, definitely, costs will be cut down for the litigant, in terms of travel, even being able to access your lawyer. You don't have to come from Tuticorin to Chennai. You can even use online. You can use online comfortably. So definitely, I think costs will come down. You will also find that there's a Delhi cost come down. Today, prior to COVID, cases conducted in the Supreme Court and in tribunals in Delhi were subject to very heavy fees. Delhi lawyers commanded a premium. But now you find lawyers across the country were able to appear in those courts. So I think that's going to have an impact on fees as well. On the flip side, we cannot really work with online exclusively, or I would say even mostly, because there is something about a courtroom, the majesty and awe of the courtroom. And there is something about, the law and arguments in court, litigation is about history and it's about eloquence, presenting an argument, changing a judge's mind. And sometimes it's one thing to change a judge's mind across a table. Across the table, it's transactional. Doing it in court is an entirely different setting, and I completely agree with Dr. Revati Damchand was saying. Like you can't dance to an empty stage. You cannot perform the histrionics and eloquence of a legal art, in your office room in front of a screen. You can't. So I think we need to strike a balance. We should have both. We should have online. We should have court functioning. We need to choose the appropriate cases for each. But there is one more point I want to make, Rashida.
Yes.
And that is that while we can have efficiency in online functioning, let's not forget that the court is not just a place for resolving personal and private and commercial disputes. The court is also the institution which is the constitutional protector of liberty and freedom. It is the third estate. It is a check against government, against arbitrary and excessive government. And for that, you need the court as an institution. And you need the lawyers to think of themselves as a collective who band together to fight against arbitrariness and excessiveness and injustice. Now, if lawyers are not able to meet each other on a daily basis in a forum, that gets impacted. So that is something that worries me, that, if we slip comfortably into online functioning, we are going to lose the institutionality strength. We need to be very watchful for that. Yeah.
Thank you, Sriram. I mean, that's so important, that human interaction, and it does matter. Now, moving on to Revati. Revati, you already told us a little bit about what Kalakshetra is planning. So, in short, can you tell us about what 2021 has in store when it comes to arts exhibition, crafts people, the small craftsmen who come to our cities and towns, hold crafts melas, craft bazaars, and we directly go and buy. At least there's no middleman. How has that sector been affected, and is there hope for them?
See, I don't know whether you're aware, but Kalakshetra Foundation, we have a crafts education and research center. We have about 14 looms and some weavers and kalamkari artists who are attached with us. And we have been working through the pandemic because they have been given residences in the campus. And so they have been working on the looms through the pandemic, and we've been giving them. It is true that the pandemic, art is one field. It is hope. Art is always signifies hope because there is creativity, there is imagination, and there's something. And it is one field which is very important because it deals with the psychology of human beings, and art is most important for everyone to take solace to, whether we understand it or not. It might be through movies, it might be through any performing arts, so arts are very, very important. And as the physical spaces that we are not able to share now as artists is definitely a question, it's a challenge for all of us, though we are adapting to it and doing other methods of bringing forth our capacity and capability to and the ability to the audience. 2021, we look because there have been so many shows have been cancelled, abrupt ending of shows, that which we are looking forward to. So many programs and so many, and it's like for us, for artists who are of some who have a decent livelihood, it is different. But for those who are dependent on art, like I have to look at people like the light people, the people in charge of the sound, light equipment, the stage properties. They have suffered a lot in this whole deal. This pandemic has really driven them to, like, there have been some artists who are just teachers and small scale teachers who just could afford a home, and because they were going home to home teaching students, and they were sound and light men who were working on they were very busy through the year, and especially during the December season, who have all did not have anything to do. And all these small artists and those who are co-artists and who have lent so much of their being to the art form being on stage, we have to look at all of them. And 2021 till the vaccine comes, I think the situation is going to continue. But I'm sure that the artists will think of some way of coping up. Like all of them have taken to other methods of teaching, even to know a technology. Like if you look at another Swara Vidwan or someone like that, I don't know how far the technology is going to help him. So it is. I think it is very important that that CSR projects and others look into the well-being of such people. I think corporates must come forward to support such artists during this time, because it is art which is most important, and it is the life soul of any country. And these people have to be supported so that the whatever we have got, and the traditional art which has been inherited and which has been preserved for so long, has to go on for posterity. And that can be done only by corporates and others who can support these artists, the craftsmen, as you said, and they have to be supported at this point. And like people are saying that we can see the dawn only by the end of 2021. I hope not. I do hope that everything comes all right within. That's I think the artist in me. We hope for the best to happen as soon as possible, so that something comes up and everything comes back to normalcy. And I'm
Thank you so much, Revati. I'll stop
that's
you there.
yeah.
Now I think we'll go to Dr. Arvind, and I think the question of the evening, everybody is waiting for this question. What will this year or the next, what will it mean? Will it give us the vaccine? Would you go for the vaccine? Should I go for the vaccine? Will it affect my brain function? What do you have to say about the vaccine? Is there hope?
I'll go for the vaccine. We have to trust people. The people who are working on vaccine are not people playing around with small things. I mean, these are large organizations, responsible people. The government is involved. So I will definitely go for the vaccine. I will trust the people who are working on it, and I would recommend all of us to go ahead with it. That seems to be a savior. I have two quick points to make. One is on healthcare. Broadly, we have been pre-COVID levels from starting from October, end of October, November, December. I think we'll be more busier in 2021 because, what we have understood is, disease does not stop with COVID, right? Disease keeps progressing. Diabetes keeps progressing, eye conditions keep progressing. So if I operate on a regular day pre-COVID, I would do about, say, 10% of surgeries where people are blind. They can't function. Today, that's about 40 to 45%. So the disease has progressed. So now only we realize that whatever all of us are doing together protects this community. It's a maintenance function that healthcare does to a large extent. If that maintenance function is stopped, doesn't mean that the problems don't happen. So I think 2021 will be a very, very busy year for non-COVID conditions, non-communicable disease management, elective surgeries. So it's going to be a spurt. Fine. The second point I really wanted to make is, we have protected ourselves physically, social distancing, but emotionally we become very vulnerable. I just wanted to make an observation. My father is 87 and he doesn't want to sit at home. He gets, he wants to be in the organization. That's where he was all his life. He wants to be part of this whole journey. So I think people who are in the senior citizens, elderly age group, I think that is another area one has to be really watching out for. There is a lot of mental trauma, emotional, damage that could have happened. So one has to be very much aware of what would have happened. Imagine if our son is in America. The last 9 months, they have not come and seen the mother or father. The mother or father could have fallen ill, could have had something. So both the sides are suffering. Not only the parent, the son or daughter is also suffering because they are helpless. So I think that's another area we have to be cognizant of. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Arvind. Mr. Vaidya, now coming to 2021 and the physical opening up of classrooms, how is that going to happen? Do you think any serious learning has taken place during the last 9 months, especially when it comes to younger children? So many jokes on social media about, people learning online and playing, okay, they do it anyway in classrooms. And how do you see classrooms opening up? I mean, IIT tried it and see what happened.
Well, actually, it's an inevitable that will happen as we move forward. Campuses have to open up, classrooms will open up. But one thing that the Gen Y must be very cautiously mindful is also higher levels of self-discipline that is required, because it is in their good health lies the institutional health and the ecosystem's health. So they have to be more and more responsible in the way in which they start engaging with their day-to-day teaching learning, and especially in residential campuses like ours, they'll have to be doubly careful. But moving forward in 2021, one thing is that, though I said, we passed as an aggregate set of institutions, if we unbundle the ecosystem, I still feel that there is a lot of gap, and much of the policy making must not stop at just that intellectual paratrooping. I mean, there is a lot of learning that is need to be acquired from the practical foot soldiering that many have done so far, and both of them have to meet because we have a very diverse spectrum of institutions. Some of them are very puerile primitives, not really knowing what online education is. Some of them are just the adolescent adopters, just getting there, and some are very, very matured masters. So it has to be a team effort of all these types of institutions to get together to make sure the best practices are shared, and it requires a lot of support, financial, non-financial, tangible, intangible, to reduce this gap, given the fact that online education is here to stay. But is it going to stay permanently? Well, it will stay permanently, but it's not going to replace the physical brick and mortar teaching learning ecosystem. And, when I ask the students in class, are you following me today? They say, yes, sir, I follow you on Twitter. But, moving forward, when I ask the same question in class, I expect a better answer. So it's there to stay, but then, a significant part will still have to be face-to-face.
Thank you, Mr. Vaidya. Mr. Ravi, you said that your hotels in Maldives and the other place are getting back to normal. We're getting great deals on luxury escapes. Do you think we should grab those? And, because the hotel prices are again going to shoot up, holiday packages? Tell us what.
But no, if the city, if the country in which you are going is you feel safe and they follow this, I think we should take it. This is a good time to do.
About within India,
within India, yes. Yeah, definitely. I think there are, I would say, 9 out of 10, they are following good protocols, the good brands. I think one can definitely take that. And this hospitality is in experiential selling. You can't do a virtual thing in hospitality. And we, as usual, again, we would like to meet people. We want to get connected, meet friends. Beyond a point, virtual will not work on these things. Yes, for a limited period when we have this kind of pandemic, I agree. But sooner or later, people would like to get out of and get back to that routine. And certainly, yes, if there is a good package, but certainly I would recommend where, overall, I think post the vaccine, everybody is going to be more comfortable. But then even now, yes, if you are comfortable, if you are going with the group, those kind of things will definitely make things better. Known groups, I would put it that way.
Okay, thank you. Now, the third and the final round, before we throw it open to questions, just, I'm going to ask each of you about your personal experience. Coming to you, Sriram, can you share with us an anecdote or a personal takeaway from this? An anecdote on your brush with the lordships would be great, of course, but I'll leave it to you. How has, anything that you can remember, anything remarkable from this pandemic? Unmute.
Sadly, because of online, I haven't had enough brushes with their lordships.
Okay.
But let me give you my personal takeaway. I think COVID taught me some very important lessons. It taught me what's important in terms of life, health, loved ones, and friends who are family. It taught me that you can make do with less in terms of, whatever, whether it is clothes or property or money. It taught me two further things, that time is not infinite. that whatever you want to do it now. And it taught me that as human beings, we have a can-do spirit. We have a resilience and a spirit of innovation. Because in my profession, we've innovated with work and really come up to par. In my interactions, I've used online. I host groups with my school friends. I host weekly meetings with my college friends. I link up my family online. And every evening, almost every evening, I spend 1 hour chatting with a friend from across the globe. So it has, in fact, brought me into contact with far more people than before. And it's made me realize the value of, of friends, of people close to one. So there's much, I think, to be grateful for.
Thank you. That's so interesting. Dr. Arvind Sriram spoke about how this pandemic has reminded us we are not immortal. You in your profession must have had some interesting story. What has it personally taught you, and anything you would like to relate from this?
How vulnerable we are as human beings,
Yes.
how we take things for granted. One of the doctors whom I know very well, he succumbed to COVID, hardly about 62 years. And, the family, and his commitment to his profession was well known, well regarded. So that kind of made, that was undoing for him in many ways. So you kind of realize that everything you need to balance. That's the message I'm getting, even running an organization. Because the first time when we had a couple of our staff members who got COVID positive, it was surprising. They became untouchables within an organization. The basic human nature, which we all suppress by camouflaging it with many softer and nicer things, they all come out. Till yesterday they were friends, and today nobody wants to go to them. Nobody wants to take food to them. Nobody wants to. So you just realize, all that you have doesn't matter. Only till the music goes on, everything is great. So that's something which taught me that it's good to be humble and have the humility to realize all the paraphernalia is just an act that you're doing. But basically being a good human being, being connected to people, and know that your life will end. I think those are very important messages that it was very strong message that came through.
One small short follow-up question, Doctor. Your organization is known for the charitable work you do, and Sriram talked about it, has reminded us about our mortality, and anytime anybody can go. Do you think this has made people open up their hearts and purses and give generously, compassion, like instead of going and putting large bundles of money in Tirupati and giving it to the gods of all religions, are we human beings helping others? Have you seen any spurt in giving?
It's a little early, because charity also follows a trend. The trend today is COVID. They were supporting the hospitals, they were supporting acute care, they were supporting. So today people have not reached a stage where they are looking at others suffering. It could be migrant workers, people were supporting. So I think that has not happened, and all industries have suffered. There has been a contraction in the GDP. So we are not assuming that someone else is well off and the others are not. So I think it is a challenging phase. I don't have an answer for it, but I think they are struggling to find their own feet, even the corporates. So maybe once they once they settle down, they probably would be much more giving to some of these causes.
Fair enough. Revati, you made a very fervent appeal to corporates and CSR to help artisans who have really been hit hard by this pandemic. Would you like to relate an example, or somebody who came to you, a moving story or anecdote by which you were really personally moved or affected?
See, as I told you, the Katekuthu Sangam, we just had their performance. Like they were people, they had a school in Kanchipuram which had to be shut down. It was in the village areas, and they were training them both in the Katekuthu, and they were running a regular school, providing them meal and everything had to be shut down because of the COVID reasons. So they now do not have the money to really open up. So like, and they don't have programs. And so that was one, that's just one small example, but there have been so many people in the campus who would have gone without, like, if we had to cut down on their because of cutting down the number of people working in our campus, because we were asked to work, the government had called on us to work only with the 50% of the people in the campus, and most of the teachers could not come for live classes on the campus, and they were doing it online. And so it was a big challenge at that time for most of the teachers. Some of them did not have money to pay for their schools, for their children to go to school, some of the art teachers. And so we had to support them by giving them, because they were going to school in the campus. We have schools, so we run 2 schools. And so we gave them some waivers so that their children need not pay the fee for this period. And there was one particular incident which I wish to bring to the notice. Like, we have students from the Northeast, like it's a Northeast scholarship which the government has provided, and it's funding. And so by the north, from Arunachal Pradesh, there was a set of about 4 to 5 children studying in the +2 in our school here in the campus, and these children had to be sent back home. And now, and when the classes started online, these children would not come for the classes online. And so when I inquired about what is happening to them, it was said that these children, because everything was taken care for them, their study, their uniform, their food, everything was taken care of by Kalakshetra through government funding. And so these students had everything free, and they were doing their studies here in Kalakshetra to CBSE. And once they went back, the parents could not feed one mouth, and so they were sent to the fields to work. And so these students could not attend the classes because they were working in the fields. And so there was an appeal to us to bring the children back to Kalakshetra. Somehow you keep them in the campus, whether they are having school or not, because the government SOPs were not for us to bring back the children. So we decided to give them a kind of some money, some scholarship support from here, and told them to come to a library in Arunachal Pradesh, the headquarters, and do their studies from there. And so we've been supporting them that way. This is one thing which has happened. So these are some of the things which have been happening in the field of arts and education. I think it is. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Now, coming to you, Mr. Ravi, you mentioned about the pregnant women who had to be quarantined or something. Any heartrending, any other stories you would like to share with us about,
No, on the construction side.
Yeah. The migrant
on the
workers.
construction side. Migrant workers, I would like to talk about that.
Yes, please do.
At the initial point, we were almost having about 2,000 laborers across few sites were with us. We have been giving them salary and support for almost 2.5 to 3 months, because they were not allowed to travel. All that they could connect only by their phone to their hometown. The government were giving free rices to them also. They were supporting, I must say that, because they asked us the list. Rice, government.
Right. Okay.
Government gave that, but we gave them salary, we gave them all the other things for the whole period. But they were restless. They were at a point they realized that they may not live, and they wanted to see their family before something happened to them. This is the fear at which they were living, because they didn't have an information which is up to date. And while every one of us were on the fear, they were more because of the communication. That is the reason which has led to them. People started walking, going by bicycle. All these have happened. And we have seen people paying a huge amount, 4 times, 5 times for a chartered bus to go to their native place. This is something which was really disturbing. And the fact is, once they reached, in a matter of 20-30 days, almost 60-70% have come back. We have brought 50% of them by flights and balance by a chartered bus. But this is something which has really disturbed their mind, whose understanding is very poor compared to all of us. That is something which has really disturbed us.
Rashida, just before you move on, Revati ji wants to leave. She has a show in the evening. So let me just take this opportunity to thank you so much, Revati ji, for being here with us. We all know how busy the season is for you. So thanks for joining in and have a lovely evening. Hope to catch one of the Kalakshetra shows soon. You're muted, sorry.
You have to unmute yourself. Can't hear you, Revati. Unmute.
Yeah, I thank you. Thank you for having given me this opportunity, and I want to apologize to all the panelists because we have a show here and I have to be at the auditorium right now. And and thank you so much, Venugopal, also for having me here. And thanks to all of you. Thank you, Vanita.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Over to you, Rashida. Thank you, Revati. I'll catch up offline.
There are any more comments, or we have a little more time? So if any of our panelists wants to share something which they feel has been left out, this pandemic has brought out so many different, it has kind of uncovered so many layers in our personality, how we react as human beings. Like Shriram said, so poignantly, he's spending more time with people. All these lives, all these years we were in a race kind of running around, no time. Like migrant workers you mentioned, Ravi, I was listening to Professor Mohammed Yunus, Grameen Bank, and he was saying that all these migrant workers, the moment a pandemic, a crisis like this hit, they were on their own. Nobody to own them. You were talking, Ravi, about how you accommodated, and I'm sure there were many people like you who did. But there were so many others who said, "No, hamare aapke liye kaam nahi hai, please go." You were thrown. So should there?
It did happen.
One thought that Professor Yunus said, why not governments of the world start something like a ministry? They are, after all, micro entrepreneurs. Who are these people? They bring their skills. They bring their little wares, whatever, and come and sell in our towns and cities. All our grand houses and hotels and all built on the backs of these people. So why not have an organized sector, call them the Ministry of, like you have a Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Micro Entrepreneurs, because when there is a crisis, they are on their own, so that kind of a thought. Anybody else wants to add anything else? And then otherwise we'll wrap it up. Yes, Vaidya, please go ahead.
Yeah, just on the last part, the deep concern that I have is on, maybe I wish I'm wrong. There seems to be a lot of convergence on the least common denominator when it comes to evaluation, especially academic ethics in the online ecosystem that we have. So I would wish that changes, given the fact that online is going to stay, instead of converging on a least common denominator to find an easy pathway to just clear your exams. I wish there is some convergence on the highest common factor. So I'm using these two mathematical abbreviations, HCF and LCD. So let it not be least, think a little high. So that should be the convergence, because we are giving freedom, and let the freedom be used properly, because the stakes involved are very high.
I also loved your terminology, unscheduled examination for your sector and others. Either we passed or we failed. Anybody else? Shriram, Ravi, Dr. Arvind? Any other comments? Does the audience have any questions? I don't see any questions.
Yes, Rashida. Ravi Kumar has a question to the panel. While he is, he says that it's heartening to hear the stories of resilience and praise for the way the government has handled, from the panelists. He would also like to know from the panelists what changes they were forced to implement, that will go forward, and what changes will drop and go back the way things were.
Yes, I can see his question. Do you want me to repeat that question?
Yes.
The post-COVID world, what changes were you forced to implement? And whether these will become permanent? Or would you, all of us will go back to as we were,
Can I take
selfish characters? Yes, doctor.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that has happened in the medical profession is, as we all know, a patient and a doctor, like what the legal profession or a teaching profession, even the arts, there is a trust and bonding that happens. So when we see people, older people, when they come to a doctor, they definitely would like to talk to the doctor. They would like to see the face. And today we have already become computerized. So we spend a lot of time watching a computer because all electronic medical record. We seldom see the face of the patient. And that face is also half covered. They only see the eye, and they can't make out. I think there is a lot of trust deficit that has come. I really hope we move away from masks. Though it sounds a little difficult at this stage of our, but that's who we are. Our expressions are very important to people. How do we communicate compassion? How do we communicate? And the voice is also muffled. With all the, as doctors, we wear a N95. We wear one more mask to be protected, and people wear a visor to be protected. Multiple things. So you're in proximity, but you're two different worlds. You're completely, you don't trust each other. You're worried. I'll give you one small example and I'll close it. We had a good doctor with us who still works with us. Very nice doctor, a gentle person. Suddenly, there was a chaos in their clinic. There was this old lady who came into her room and got examined. She, when we examine in a particular machine, they have to keep their face. So unconsciously, she removed her mask. And this doctor threw a tantrum. And because, it was just not a thought out, it was more a shock, that how can you remove your mask? You're being dangerous. So that lady felt so bad, that older person, the son felt so bad. So I think this trust deficit, that has to be overcome. I really hope vaccine does the magic. We have to, at least in the healthcare, we have to show who we are, to communicate and genuinely care for people.
Rashida, can I give you another point of view?
Please.
In the mediations which I do, which you're putting in the same room parties who are really have animosity towards each other. Yes, there's hostility, there's animosity, etc. When we used to conduct them real time, there would actually be an air of hostility in the room. You could feel it. Sometimes you can slice through it. It's so strong. But interestingly enough, when you're doing it on screen, you don't have that hostility. Each one is within the confines and safety of their homes. They're not sitting at arm's distance with the other.
Yes.
So in fact, I find them more secure and more relaxed. It's an observation which struck me when I was hearing Dr. Srinivasan. It's the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah. And when Dr. Arvind was speaking, another contrast hit me. Sorry, Sriram, I'm going to pull your leg for the last time. Dr. Arvind said, remove the mask and the doctor can, convey the compassion. Whereas lawyers like, I won't say like Sriram, maybe a Harish Salve, you said when the presence in the courtroom, the lawyer can affect the judges, the way he judges a case. So that's very interesting, intimidating the judge, as it were, or overruling him.
Listen, we know our Shakespeare well. All the world is a stage, yes? We know our Shakespeare well.
Absolutely, you said it. I think we should end on that note. And thank you so much for this.
Sorry, Rashida, there's just one more question. I'm sorry. This is from Shankar Vanavarayar. He says, are we as a pandemic impacted society refusing or losing an opportunity to reinvent interventions, cost, tech and culture of work, or reach or serve? Are we missing an opportunity in any of the streams?
Can you repeat
to reinvent cost, technology, culture of work? Who would like to answer that question? Pandemic has given us an opportunity, but we are losing it to reinvent or interventions, new technology, cost, reduce costs. Who would like to take that question? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Shankar, it's a good question. It's still a lot of time left to conclusively say that we have lost or gained. So we are on the learning curve, and there is a lot of maximum learning that has happened. Those who have picked it up are on the right pathway to build some good contours. I would see that this wind of change, I will put it this way, this wind of change, as he rightly said, has given us a lot of opportunity. Some are beginning to build windmills, while some can build shelters and be protected from it. But I see a lot of windmills blowing also.
Interesting. So, Vanita, there are no more questions. So,
yes, Rashida, I think it's year end, and let's close it here. Thank you, Rashida. Thanks for doing this for us and putting together this panel. Thank you, Sriram, Dr. Arvind, Vaidya, Ravi Appaswamy, and Revati ji, who's left just now for her show. It's really interesting because it's like CIC fellows who are also leads in the respective streams come and share how the year has been, and I think we all look forward to 2021 with a lot of hope. I'm sure we'll probably reconvene again to see how it started. Thank you so much for doing this for us. Wish you all a very happy new year. Thanks to our lovely audience who come program after program and share their feedback. Thank you so much for being with us here today. Wish you all a very, very happy new year. And let's look forward to 2021 with hope. Thank you.
Look forward for a cracker of the 100th session soon.
Thank you all. Thank you.